DC Dual Force is home to a ton of really interesting archetypes. I've playtested the game a lot, whether it be on Tabletop Simulator or whether it be through the actual in-game client. I feel like I've tried every single archetype within the base set of cards at least once. I took a look through all of the cards in the game and I couldn't find any card that I hadn't played. And I thought it'd be cool to do like a top 10 list of the most interesting cards in the game, the cards that I'm most looking forward to trying out once we've got our hands on the client again. And honestly, 10 is far too short of a list. My initial prep for this video was laying out a bunch of cards I thought were interesting in Tabletop Simulator, and I had over 50 cards. I had to trim those 50 cards down to a top 10 list. So if a card didn't make it onto this list, it's probably because it was in that group of 50. Let's not waste any time and jump straight into the list, starting with Unexpected Help at the number 10 slot. Unexpected Help lets you kind of revive a hero. You need fewer than 2 leaders, but it lets you summon a Might, Energy, or Tactics leader. The total number of leaders across the Might, Energy, and Tactics faction is 11. Of all of those leaders, only one of them can't be used the turn Unexpected Help resolves. If you resolve Unexpected Help and it summons in Cyborg, you won't be able to use his ability because he has 4 charges, and honestly, that hurts Unexpected Help quite a lot. The 1 in 11 chance to just entirely whiff, and usually at that point in the game, if the opponent's killed one of your leaders, they should be able to kill off the 10 health thing if you don't do something on the board to kind of remedy the fact that you're losing out there. The nice thing about summoning in a leader from Unexpected Help is the leader is not exhausted. Only recruits come into play exhausted, so leaders have free range to use their abilities to clear out the board. For example, if we were to summon in Superman, we can use Superman's ability to clear off a unit, or a recruit I should say. If we were to summon in Shazam, we can do the same thing. If we get an Aquaman, we can get a sea creature and then attack something. The priority of this effect probably looks something like this, with Cyborg being the least valuable result, Green Arrow being the second least valuable result, because his ability doesn't actually do anything until we spend an additional resource on it. Hal Jordan and the Flash probably come up next, mainly because their impact on the board is relatively minor. Now, don't get me wrong, their impact on the board can be important, but compared to the other leaders that we're about to go over, it is substantially worse. The Flash being a little bit worse than Hal Jordan in most cases, because of course, the Flash will only have 10 health, and obviously his ability leads him to being a bit more vulnerable than other leaders. Wonder Woman and Batgirl probably come up next. They have relatively equivalent impacts on the board, but Batgirl can be incredibly clutch depending on your current board state, and then obviously Wonder Woman is also dependent on your current board state. Superman oftentimes is just kill a unit, so that's really good. Shazam, similar things can be said. Creating the lightning bolts can be important, especially depending on how deep into the game you are. The only downside, of course, is that you're sacrificing quite a bit of Shazam's 10 health in order to kill off something if it's a large target. Batman is, of course, a fantastic leader, and that's no exception in this case, being able to get the 3 attack, and then one of the gadgets can be super clutch. And then Aquaman, of course, is probably your most desired target most of the time when resolving Unexpected Help, because not only do you get the 3 attack, but you get a free recruit as well. It's worth mentioning something that people don't really remember about Unexpected Help is that when you play it, the leader that it summons can summon anywhere. The bottom left and right hand spaces on the board are not designated for leaders. That's just their default spawn position. So if they destroy my leader on the left and then later in the game I play Unexpected Help, that doesn't mean the leader that I summon will go to the bottom left. It can summon in any of the available open spaces. I love the design of Unexpected Help, and it's a card that I pretty much jam into any deck that can get away with running it. That's not necessarily every red deck. Some red decks will be super punished when they draw this. They just don't need it. But if I'm playing a slow deck and I'm already in the Might faction, I'm probably going to pick up an Unexpected Help. I can't stop myself. This card is irresistible. The Ring Chooses. This is the best Green Lantern card on the market. I don't know why I said on the market. Currently, right now in the game, even though that's going to change very quickly after we start getting cards from the comic adventures, there are 9 Green Lanterns in the game. Of those 9 Green Lanterns, 3 of them really want buffs. John Stewart, Kyle Rayner, and Hal Jordan all really appreciate receiving any type of buff. That's why both Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz are designed to buff cards in your hand. So really, when we play the Ring Chooses, we're looking for one of those 3 cards. In most cases, it's going to be John Stewart or Hal Jordan. If we see either of those 2, we're probably instantly picking them. But the Ring Chooses can also be really clutch to help fill out your curve. If you're on turn 1 and you don't have a play, the odds of it not giving you a bronze card you can play next turn is really low. There's also situations where you need a clutch Green Lantern cadet. The flexibility of the Ring Chooses is honestly just so awesome. It cannot be overstated just how cool it is that you get to seek a Green Lantern. Seeking is so much better than creating a card. The Ring Chooses is actually actually so good that it might even warrant a slot outside of Green Lantern decks. The only issue with the Ring Choose is, of course, that you need to play it and then play the Green Lantern the following turn in most cases. So if we play the Ring Choosers and we pick up a Hal Jordan, obviously we can't play Hal Jordan that turn unless we found a way to generate an extra bronze resource, or else we're not going to get the deploy effect from Hal Jordan. I think I've ranted enough about the Ring Choosers. I think the card's really, really fun, and it's probably one of the big saving graces of the Green Lantern package. Up next is Killer Frost. I love this card. As people begin to figure out how this game works, we've seen a lot of the early quote-unquote meta revolve around high tempo plays. Obviously, that's mostly because people are gravitating towards Batman, who's very tempo oriented. Killer Frost can slow down those tempo plays significantly more than what it might seem initially. If you play this card on your turn 2, the opponent won't be able to play Batman as a response, and now you have a 1/1 lethal card on board. Don't get me wrong, that setup doesn't justify just running it in any deck, but if your deck list looks right for it, Killer Frost can be a key important card for slowing down the game. It is worth mentioning, of course, though, that the opponent does get to keep their charge for that turn. So even though you've exhausted them and prevented them from attacking, if we take Batman for an example, who would be going to 2 charge, when he finally does activate his ability for the first time, now being on turn 3, he'll go to 3 charge, he'll spend his 2, go back down to 1, and then at the start of his next turn, he'll gain another charge going to 2, so he'll be able to activate his ability 2 turns in a row, which might even be better for him in some cases. And judging when it's correct to use Killer Frost and when it's not correct to use Killer Frost can be a little tricky, and for that reason I think this is a high skill cap card. It's a really fun card to use, and I like it a lot. Who knows if it's actually any good? I think that's a meta relevant question, and who knows what the meta is going to look like in this game a month after release. But it's not about how good the card is, it's about how much I like the card, and Killer Frost is high on my list for cards that I enjoy. Dual Force, man, it's got the name of the game in it. That's how you know it's good. Charge your leaders twice. Leader charge is so important in this game, and being able to get a surprise 2 charge on both of your leaders can be insanely clutch. I will say with some of the cheaper leader effects in the game, this isn't as impactful as I would like it to be. It can make for a huge tempo swing, especially if one of those abilities is Aquaman, because of course Aquaman's going to put a sea creature on your board, so you're not losing out on tempo as much as you think you might be for using a gold resource on an effect like this. Next up is Deathstroke. I criminally underrated this card the first time that I read it. Deathstroke is a 5/4. He's an ultimate card, so we can't really build our deck around him because we only run 1 copy, but he reads a lethal after an enemy character is KO'd, ready Deathstroke. This is so important. Here's the big thing that a lot of people miss about this card. There is no summoning sickness in Dual Force. When you play a card in Dual Force, that card is exhausted, just as though it had already attacked. That's all that happens. So if I play Deathstroke on my turn, and then I use my leader ability to either kill off an enemy leader or recruit, Deathstroke will then ready. So if I pair this with something like Doomsday, who can all but guarantee I'm going to be able to remove something with his ability, whether it be a leader or a recruit, I can kill that thing off. Now Deathstroke can attack, kill off something big with its lethal effect. Maybe Deathstroke will die off, maybe he won't. Maybe we just attack the leader instead of killing off something through the rest of our abilities and the rest of our resources and continue to kill things off and make Deathstroke go huge. Again, the big thing people forget about this card is that he can attack the turn that he's played despite not having speed, as long as you can kill something after you play him. Obviously, he would be a lot better if he did have speed, but he has kind of pseudo speed in the fact that you can re-ready him despite the fact that it's been his first turn on the board. He's been incredibly clutch in the few games that I've tried him out. I'm not sure what the surrounding deck list looks like for Deathstroke just yet, but I know he's a ton of fun to use. Anything that re-readies itself is fun, right? The faction that he's in is kind of awkward to work around his ability, but we will find a way because Deathstroke is a blast. Speaking of cards that I underrated, Zatanna. Zatanna is so much fun. In fact, I think tomorrow's video, or it might have been yesterday's video, at some point I'm planning to do a video with magical spells because, man, the magical spell package is just so much fun. It's probably my favorite archetype in the entire game right now. So yes, we're talking about Zatanna here, but really I mean the entire magical spell faction. And honestly, it's so exciting to me that I'm enjoying Zatanna's gameplay because Zatanna was one of the characters I really wanted to see as a character before she was revealed, or as a leader I should say, and honestly I did not expect to see her as one of the characters we got at launch. And then when I finally did get my hands on the game, I didn't really enjoy the spell archetype as much as I thought I would. I was pretty disappointed with it at first. I was like, oh, I don't know, I have to spend resources on this and that, and it didn't seem particularly exciting to me. But the more you play with it, the more you find the different synergies between all the magical spells and the magical spell support cards, it starts feeling way more fun and way more exciting. I wish I wasn't so hard on this card when it first came around because A, I think it's a lot better than I gave it credit for, and it's definitely way more fun than I gave it credit for. Might even be my favorite leader. This list isn't ordered, so I'll quickly move on to the next leader that I'm going to talk about, and that's Aquaman. Aquaman's a card that saw a lot of play in the first streamer beta, and I'm sure once the general public gets their hands on the game, you're going to see a lot of Aquaman, because not only is he a really strong leader, he's a really fun leader. Summoning in sea creature tokens is a blast, giving them +1/+1's a blast, and then also being able to attack on the board. Aquaman's just doing a lot on a single effect. And once you run Aquaman, you're incentivized to run a bunch of other fun cards. You get to run Throne of Atlantis, which also generates you sea creatures. You might even run the Recruit Aquaman to pair with your Aquaman leader. Before my recent enjoyment of Zatanna, Aquaman was absolutely my favorite leader in the game. But considering how much I've been enjoying Zatanna recently, I don't know which one I prefer. Whether it's Zatanna or Aquaman is a really close call to me. It's probably Zatanna, but the fact that I'm even considering those two should speak volumes of just how enjoyable the two of the characters are. Lucius Fox. Say what you will about the gadget archetype. Obviously, a lot of people are gravitating toward gadgets right now. A lot of people think gadgets and Batman himself are both the strongest archetypes in the game, and perhaps they're right. I'm inclined to believe that as well. I think Batman's probably the best leader, but just because it's the best doesn't mean it's not fun. The gadget archetype is really fun, and Lucius is kind of representing that on this list, but Lucius himself is a really cool card. Honestly, and part of the reason I like Lucius so much is that he surprised me. If you go back and watch my tactics review video, I talked about how Lucius was in an awkward spot. I said it felt weird to run one copy of Lucius because if you don't draw him, it really sucks. And it felt weird to run two copies of him because if you draw the second copy and you've already upgraded your cards, then Lucius Fox isn't doing anything, and then that feels awkward. But in practice, after playing many more games, it turns out his effect is so impactful that you would probably run 4 of these if you could. Upgrading your gadgets is huge. Doubling the damage on Batarang is absolutely massive. Adding a draw card to Bandage is insane, especially when comboed with some of the other gadget cards, namely Batman, who draws you a card every time you play a gadget. Now Bandage is draw 2. We haven't got a chance to talk about this, but Tear Gas is kind of a side grade. Hitting 2 enemy recruits is sometimes worse than hitting 1 enemy recruit because I believe you need 2 valid targets to actually play the upgraded Tear Gas. Could be wrong about that, but I believe you do. But regardless, in most cases, these upgrades are huge. I mean, obviously the upgrade on Grapnel Gun isn't as exciting as the other upgrades, but it's fine because if you're generating most of your gadgets through Batman's ability, you can just literally ignore Grapnel Gun always and just take a Bandage, Batarang, or Tear Gas. Obviously, when you're generating a gadget through like a Create effect instead of a Seek effect, you might pull Grapnel Gun, but that's only a 25% chance compared to the 75% chance of hitting something good, which would be Tear Gas, Batarang, and Bandage, and even in some cases, Grapnel Gun can be good for you. All of that is to say that Lucius Fox creates a really fun gameplay loop, regardless of how strong it is. All right, these last 2 cards are very, very close to me, but I have ordered them. The last card I'll talk about is definitely my favorite card in the game. The second last is a very, very close one for me. The second last one is Firestorm. Just a reminder, because Firestorm's got a pretty unique effect. He's a 4/3, he's a silver, he's an ultimate card, so you can only run 1 copy of this card, and he reads End. Deal 2 damage to each enemy in Firestorm's lane for each other card you've played this turn. I absolutely love this card. It is so fun. You don't even need to build around this effect. I mean, it's nice if you have built around this effect. Maybe you're running some gadgets, maybe you're running some lightning bolts, maybe you're running other ways to play free cards. Whatever unique ways you've found to play multiple cards in the same turn, you can run Firestorm and have an absolute blast with him. And like I said, you don't need to build around him. If you play Firestorm and then just one other card, Firestorm's already dealing 2 damage in a lane. Obviously, that's not ideal, and he's most likely going to die after that, but there's going to be cases where he lives, and then you get to play a whole nother turn, and now he's dealing 4 damage in that lane. But really, the reason I enjoy the card so much is there's so much deck building potential around Firestorm. I mean, obviously, a lot of people's first thought is gadgets, because all of the gadgets are free. But there's ways to cheat out play effects through other factions. Take a look at the Anarchy faction and Ventriloquist. Ventriloquist proccing off of Arkham inmate summons is a huge deal. Using Firestorm to take advantage of that is so interesting because not only do you get the procs off of Ventriloquist, resulting in more play effects for Firestorm, you're also probably running firepower effects, which will buff up Firestorm as well. In the Might faction, you could run cards like Thanagarian Mace to get off an extra play ability on Firestorm. In the Might faction, you could run Thanagarian Mace to get off another play effect for Firestorm. In the Tyranny faction, you could run something like Brainiac Drone, which not only gives you another play effect, but also could protect Firestorm if you're willing to play him in the middle lane. There is synergy everywhere throughout the game for Firestorm, so no matter what your deck looks like, there's probably a good chance that Firestorm is at least worth considering, especially because, you know, he only takes up one deck slot. What's the worst that could happen? And the last card I want to talk about today, my favorite card in the game. Oh my god, I cannot tell you how much I love this card. It is the Flash. Not the leader, the recruit. He's a golden card, he's a 3/3, and he reads speed. The Flash is invincible during your turn. After you play an energy card, ready the Flash. He comes into play with the ability to attack, and then every single time you play an energy card afterwards, he re-readies. So you can do a lot of crazy stuff with this card. A lot of people's instant thoughts are going to go to the Lightning Bolt package because obviously Lightning Bolts are free and they draw you a card. So there's lots of ways to manipulate that and get access to more play cards. So far, my favorite combo for the Flash has been pairing him in the Tyranny faction, running that Lightning Bolt package that we've been talking about, and then running Friends in High Places to help me search out my Flash and give him a buff. So I can search for the Flash, play him as a 6/6, and then attack with him multiple times using Lightning Bolts. Honestly, if that doesn't sound fun to you, I don't know what does, man. This card is so fun. I've been enjoying this card so much that I've even been running Shazam, which if you haven't watched any of my other videos, I'm convinced Shazam's not a very good leader. But this card, the Flash, is so fun that I'm still running Shazam. I need my Lightning Bolts, man. Need him to combo with my Flash. All right, that's my 10 favorite cards in DC Dual Force. Let me know if you have a favorite card that I didn't cover. Keep being awesome, and I'll catch you in the next one.